Hi all, Jeanette here, and I've been working steady and hard in the greenhouse, and I've about filled up every spare place on the bench that I can find, so we're gonna have to do something. But we've got a plan, so stick around and find out what our plan is. We're out in greenhouse number 2. This is where the chickens were that we put out here, like 8 hens and a rooster, to see what they do with the old dried up weeds, and also give them a good place to live for a while. So old guys pulling up the metal staples that hold the strings down, like strings you see right here. They're held down to the ground with metal staples. This is where we had cucumbers growing last year, and so we'll show you the progress of what's happening in greenhouse number 2 today.
Our number 1 house almost completely full of plants, so we're going to have to put some plants over here.
So what he's talking about is the fact that we use this greenhouse number 2 as an overflow for greenhouse number 1. We lay black ground cover, the woven ground cover, down on the ground, and then we just set the plants in their trays or in their pots in here on the ground. We don't have benches. It gives us a lot of space for overflow. And then later, after it's cleaned out, like the end of June or something, when we're through having plants in here, then we can take the ground cover up and till up the ground and plant something else in here. We've got quite a few things in here that need to be cleaned up. These are bamboo stakes, I think 36 inches, that we use for the patio tomatoes to tie them up. I've got a box of 1.5 inch pots there that are new. The box is kind of dilapidated. That's what I put the strawberry plants in to sell them. We've got some plastic in here too that is actually used as a divider sometimes down there halfway. Whenever it's quite cold, we can separate off half of the greenhouse and only heat half of it. As far as what the chickens did in here, it mostly was around the edges. I don't know if there were some kind of bugs in there, but they scratched loose a lot of weeds along the edges of the greenhouse. We matted down weeds. They didn't affect quite so much. In here though, you can see where they scratched up a lot of the weeds and made holes in the ground. They seem to concentrate their efforts down on the north end of this greenhouse more than the south end. You can see down through there, they've pretty much cleaned that up. We still have a lot of cleaning up to do. This is back where we put the chickens that first night, and they've pooped all over it. But that's our firewood for this stove that's underneath that plastic there to heat this greenhouse. And that's why we divide off half of it. We divide off this north half because that's where the stove is. We just heat it until we need to expand to the other half, which is usually whenever it's warm enough in here that we don't need to heat at all. But in this time of year, when you're at night and then in early morning, you need heat in here. But by the time the sun comes up and shines in here, it warms it up to it's too hot, and you have to drop the curtains. So it's kind of an up and down game with a greenhouse, trying to keep it cool or warm at a sufficient rate. Well, down on the other end, old guy was having a lot of trouble pulling these stakes up. He went to the barn to get a pair of pliers.
Yeah, Jan went up this row and pulled the staples up by the string, so now all I have to do is go through and cut them off. And then we had to come back and pull all the cucumber vines down and take them out. And
There's a thick cloud of dust in here.
I think I got pretty much all the loose grass and weeds raked up in here and loaded in the Bobcat. And next project is to till down these ridges so that we can level it out and put plants in here. These ridges were put here because there were cucumber plants grown in them last year. We're going to be putting black ground cover down and plants in here. We need it leveled out again. So that's what we're going to do next. I just realized we still had the drip line embedded in the ground that we need to pull up before we can till. It's actually going to break up most of this ridge without tilling. May have to put a little moisture in here.
So to get that out.
Yeah, I think we may have to wet these ridges down to be able to pull it.
That.
Are you about to get everything cleaned out?
Pretty close. Just a few more things.
What's the next step?
The next step will be pull this drip line out.
That looks like you're going to have a disaster. Maybe I better get another box and put those in there.
I'm going to till down the row where the drip line was so that we can level that out real quick. Well, we got the first bit of black plastic lay down in here. It's 12 feet wide, but this building is about 12 feet, but it's a little bit wider. So we have to use another strip besides just the main strip. So we're going to put the little piece down the edge now.
The ground cover got laid, and we have already got several plants in here because that other greenhouse was so full that we needed to keep producing more things, but didn't quite have enough room in there to put any more, so we have to start bringing it over here. These are patio tomatoes that we've put into 4-inch pots, and in a couple weeks or so we'll bump them up into 6-inch pots. Here are the first dwarf sunflowers that we put into pots and wait for them to bloom and take them to the market to sell. And down through here I have a lot of small rosemary plants. And then we get to larger rosemary plants down here in 6-inch pots. Right here by the rosemary we have that big piece of plastic that is dividing this hoop house in half to keep it warm here, because we have that wood stove right there going. It's kind of got a noisy fan, but it's burning and blowing some heat out into the greenhouse to keep things growing and happy. Down here on the south end of the greenhouse number 2, we've got strawberry plants potted up. We have 500 strawberry plants potted up into 4.5-inch pots, ready to start growing. We'll be selling them at the market. Over here we have some lavender plants that have been put into 6-inch pots that have a lot of growing to do, but they're well on their way. Thanks for joining us as we've moved over into greenhouse number 2 and spread our wings out a little bit so that we can have more room. And we'll see you next time.